Hey guys, welcome back to Wheelwork. Thanks always for watching. Today I wanted to introduce you guys formally to a vehicle you've probably seen in the background of a few of my videos, and that's this guy right here. So this is it. This is my 1978 HZ Holden. Quick backstory, the reason why I bought this car is when I was a little boy, my dad used to have a HZ, which he bought new back in the day, back in 1978. That was the car that I sort of grew up driving around in, and stuff like that, going here and there with Dad and the family. That car was with us for a very, very long time. Car that I actually learnt to drive in as well. And when that car left the family, Dad was a bit upset. So fast forward another 10, 12 years after that, I went on the hunt to find another one and fix it up and surprise Dad with it once it was done. So this was the candidate I bought. So I bought this car in northern Victoria, drove it all the way home and got to work sort of restoring it, making it what it is you see today. So car is originally red. It was a light red color, looked like it'd been painted with a roller, had a light beige interior that was all sort of ripped apart. So you buzzed it all back, did all the bodywork, fixed some rust, redid the interior, and this is sort of how it looks now. So the car has been fully rebuilt inside and out, top to bottom. Sort of everything that you could do to it has been done. Body lines and all that are pretty much all standard. It's got some Monaro mirrors on it and a few little subtle body mods. Inside the car has been retrimmed. It's all the original seats that have been refoamed and new cloth put on them. So that cloth there is actually VE Commodore, I believe. It's got some gauges. It's got an odometer, monster tack, oil pressure, volts, water temp. It's running a shifter from a VE. All the Tiptronic and all that works, which I'll explain to you what it's running in a sec, but that's probably going to be a bit of a dead giveaway. It's got a very basic Alpine stereo, Alpine head unit. It's got a couple of Alpine speakers, 4-inch speakers up on the dash there. A couple of Alpine 6x9s on the parcel shelf. Far out, this thing is filthy. Gave it a quick wipe down and I think I made it even worse. Anyway, that's okay. So I'll give you a look under the bonnet, what it's running. As most people do, or a lot of people do, it's running an LS. So this particular motor is out of a VE as well. So I bought a wrecked car that had been hit up the back and took the engine, transmission, and all that stuff out of it. Yeah, so it's an LS from a VE. Had done 73,000 Ks when this engine went in. Motor was in for about 3 years. I put the motor in about 3 years ago. About 6 years ago. And the motor was in for about 3 years as standard. And then I took the motor out to put a cam in it and sort of snowballed a bit, and one thing led to the other. So basically, I wouldn't say it's a built motor by any standards, but bottom end wise, standard rods and pistons, standard rings, all that stuff. It's just got ARP rod bolts. While we had the rod caps off, we slipped in some new bearings just for good measure. It's got an upgraded oil pump, double row chain. It's got a big cam, valve springs, push rods, sort of all that stuff. Transmission wise is still standard. It's got a transmission cooler and it's got a TCE 3800 stall, high stall. Going through a GJ Drivelines built tail shaft onto a 9-inch diff. Diff itself is running 3/7 gears with an Eaton, no it's not, it's a Harrop True Track I believe. 31 spline axles and all that. So that's basically the quick rundown on it. We are going to be doing some work on it. So what I might do is get it inside. Get it inside the back garage there, put it up on the hoist, get the wheels off, and I'll show you what we're doing with it. Behind the back garage now, just about to put it up on the hoist and give you guys a bit of a look underneath it and stuff like that and show you what we're doing. I just wanted to let you know some info that I actually forgot to tell you, which is some specs on this motor. So I've told you what sort of gone into it. Power wise, it was tuned on a roller dyno, so this is power at the wheels. Best it's made is 321 kilowatt to the back tires. It's making a little bit less than that now, and I'll explain why a little bit later on in this video. Have raced the car a few times, quarter mile racing, and best pass it's made to date is 1168. That is just sort of with the tires and stuff that it's currently got on it. When I did that pass though, the car was actually lower than it is now. It was another 15 mil lower than it was. Car was squatting too hard and bottoming out the back suspension when I tried to launch it, causing a lot of wheel spin. So that was with a relatively soft launch. The car has been raised 15 mil all round since then. It's also got a thicker sway bar in the back of it now, 90-10 front shocks, and a 50-50 rear shock to get the thing to get out of the hole a bit better, and it does launch a fair bit better already with all that stuff, but I haven't raced it since I've done all of that. So I got the thing up on the hoist to give you guys a bit of a look and also have a bit of a game plan as to what we're going to do with this car. So the whole point of this video is that I want to do some maintenance on this thing and as well as some upgrades to it as well. So I'll just give you a quick look underneath it and then I'll talk about the first thing that we're going to do. So it's pretty much running all the standard equipment that I did when the car was built with a few add-ons. So it's got an upgraded front sway bar, pedals, shocks and springs running 90-10 shocks in the front, Holly sump on that motor to make that motor fit, a set of pacemaker extractors which I've had ceramic coated, 3-inch high-flow cats, I think they're 100 cells into an X-pipe, into twin 3-inch stainless steel mufflers. Then we've got some tailpipes on there. There's the 9-inch diff, running a factory fuel tank with a VE MRA module inside the tank with the pump and the filter. Does have chassis connectors underneath it as well. It's got VS Commodore or VRVS Commodore rear brakes. So it's got slotted and drilled rotors and a VRVS caliper with a heavy duty pad. It's got braided lines front and back. It's got some adjustable upper arms to dial in pinion angle. Front brakes are, so I think these things came with a PBR caliper on Kingswood and Premier and a Gerlock caliper on Statesman and DeVille, I think. I could be wrong, but that's just what I think it is. So I have changed this to the Gerlock setup, as you can see there, which is a slightly bigger rotor and a better caliper, much bigger caliper. Probably still needs a better upgrade than that, but this thing, when I got it engineered, passed the brake test just fine. But these brakes have been on here for 10 or 11 years. You can see there's a bunch of hot spots on them. The car still does stop fine, but there is a little bit of vibration when I brake. The pad that's in it, when I bought these calipers secondhand, I had the calipers rebuilt, but the pads that were in the calipers are the pads that are still in it now, so I couldn't even tell you what brand they are. So we're going to put some better pads in it and change the rotors with some new stuff, and then we'll bleed up all the brakes. So that's going to be the first thing we do. So here's our new brakes here. I did paint the rotors red. So we've got some DBA T2 slotted rotors. These have the better cooling fins inside the rotor as well. Much better rotor, better quality, better cutting on the slots. I've got some new bearings which I've already greased up, packed with new grease, some new grease seals, and I want to put in a Bendix heavy duty pad. So once I get all that done, I'll give you a look at it, and we'll put some new fluid in it, bleed up the brakes front and rear, some fresh fluid, and then we'll get on to the next task. Quick update, got the old brakes off, old rotors are off, old pads are out, and I've pushed the piston back in the calipers. So all ready to get the new stuff, start putting it back together. Okay, so that's all done. Brakes are finished. Turned out pretty good. They look a lot better than what came off it anyway. So I've adjusted up the bearings, I've pumped up the pedal, I've bled all the brakes at all 4 corners. Brake fluid was pretty dirty, so that's all done. And while I've sort of under the front, I've gone through and re-greased all the grease points underneath the front of the car. So ball joints, tie rod ends, drag links, pitman arm, all that stuff. So re-grease all them too. So now we'll move on to the next task. Seeing as we're done with all the wheels and brakes area, I've just popped all the wheels back on. So that's that. The next thing I want to do, as I mentioned earlier, this thing is running a 9-inch diff. I've got no issues with the diff as such. Small problem I've got, more of an inconvenience than a problem, is as you can see, there's actually no drain plug on the diff. So whenever I change the diff oil, which is not very often at all, I have to undo the fuel plug, which is up there, and I try and get a little hose down inside there and try and suck out as much of the diff oil as I can. Can never get it all out, but yeah, it's just a bit of a pain in the bum. So what I plan on doing is drilling a hole down here, and I've got this drain plug here. This is from Aeroflow, so this is just a weld-on bung, and there's a little insert there that screws into it to block it off. So I basically plan on drilling a hole there and welding that onto the bottom of that. So what I'll probably do for now is just drill a relatively small hole and let all of the diff oil drain out as much as I can. And then once that's done, I'll open up the hole and prep the surface and get to welding this guy on. Alrighty, so there we go. I've just sort of buzzed back the paint on the bottom of the diff there, just to get it ready for when I weld it. And I've drilled a 8mm hole, just a bit of a pilot hole for now. So we'll just let that oil drain out. As you can see, the oil is not the best. A little bit metallic-y, but it has been ages since this oil's been changed. So we'll just let that completely drain and finish drilling that hole out to the size that we need. So that's all where we need to be now. I've just sort of put my thumb over the hole and just chucked about half a litre of just thinner gear oil in there, and just to sort of, you know, if there's anything kicking around at the bottom of the diff there, you know, any bits of metal or whatever, if I'm drilling, just let that all drain out. So I'll just let that finish draining and dripping, and then I've got that fitting all welded on. It's come up all right. So now we'll give it a squirt of paint, we'll throw the drain plug in it and fill it up with diff oil. All right, so that is the diff done. I've just given it another little squirt of black paint. So it's still wet, but that's how that turned out. It's all full of oil. So on to the next one. Alrighty, so the next job that I want to do on this car, now that that diff's done, is I want to work on the exhaust. So as I mentioned earlier, it does have a twin 3-inch system with half-low cats, center section, and twin 3-inch stainless steel straight through mufflers. Now I used to just have some dumpers on here originally when I got the car tuned, but it was just way too boomy, not to mention illegal to drive it around on the street like that. So my original system I had on this car before I LS swapped it was a twin 2¼ inch system. So what I did, as you can probably see, is it steps down to 2¼ and it's got a 2¼ inch hot dog right at the back there. So I'm basically going to redo that in twin 3-inch, so from both of them, from those flanges. So to do that, I've just got some 3-inch stuff here. I've got a couple of 3-inch hot dogs, some bends, a couple of 45s and a 90. I've got a couple of 3-inch flange plates. I've got some more bends and some straight pop over there if I need it. So yeah, that's the plan. Okay, so they're both off. I've just cleaned up the surface there where that goes on, and I've just bolted on the 3-inch flanges to get ready to start mocking it all up. So yeah, I'll start making our way back, figure out where we're going to put the hot dogs, and go from there. Just about done. This side's all done, painted, dry and installed. So that's that one. I've ditched the chrome tips and I've just gone with some little turn downs which I painted black. The other one's done. The passenger side one is just there drying. So once that's dry, I'll bang that one on, and then I'll show you what it looks like with both of them on there and it all done. Made a real mess of my floor. Normally what happens when you're doing metalwork. That's all right. Officially finished. All done, all installed, all painted. I was originally going to TIG weld all this, but I just couldn't be bothered. It's late in the day and yeah, I just couldn't be bothered. I'm a lot quicker on the MIG than I am on the TIG. And I just sort of went through and gave the welds just a very quick grind back before I painted it. Called it good enough. So now we just drop it down, see how it looks on the top. We'll start it up and see how it sounds. That's how it looks on the ground. I actually don't mind the look of the black tips, to be honest. Nice change over the chrome. You might notice in the previous, or earlier in this video, when I was reversing it in here, that the left side exhaust was actually crooked, which was another thing that was doing my head in. So it's good to have them straight. So we're back into it. That's actually a lie. It's about 3 weeks later, but you don't need to know that because internet. So next job I want to do on this car is I want to address the cooling system. So namely the radiator. So the radiator that's in this car is actually a 202 radiator, so a 6-cylinder radiator. I put this radiator in when I put this engine in just to sort of get the thing up and running and take it for a bit of a drive. Yeah, and it's still in there. So all I basically did back then was add a steam port to the top tank, and I put a bit of an elbow on the bottom fitting. Bottom radiator hose fitting down there, which I just welded on. But the radiator's not great. If you're driving along, the thing's okay, but even on sort of like an 18-degree day, if you're sitting in traffic too long, it does start getting hot. It's got a couple of thermofans on it. It's got a 14-inch, I believe, and then it's got a 10-inch next to it. This one, the main one, is controlled by the ECU, and the smaller one is controlled just by a switch I've got on the dash, which goes through a relay. So what I've got to replace it is this. So this is a radiator made by a company called Phoenix in New South Wales. So it's physically a bigger core, it's physically a little bit thicker, it's got a nice shroud on it, it's got twin 14-inch thermofans, so that should help me along quite a bit. I've got some genuine Holden coolant that I'm going to put in it as well. I've got some new radiator mounts to mount the radiator, and I've also got a ProFlow swivel thermostat housing, because this does have a straight fitting on the bottom of the radiator. That was going to get me unstuck last time, with the steering box being where it is. So I'll change the thermostat housing. I've got a new gasket for that too. So yeah, we'll get into it. So I'll start by taking off the intake. I'll drain the radiator, unplug the thermofans, and yeah, just start pulling it all apart. Didn't take long. Everything's all disconnected as far as wiring and hoses go. It's still making toilet down there, so that's all right. So yeah, we'll just unbolt the radiator, pull it out. It's all out. Radiator's out. I took the thermostat off as well, cleaned up just like that mating area. There's the old radiator. Pretty gunky and disgusting. That's an 11-second radiator right there. Thermostat housing. So now I'll probably just butt the two radiators up together, because as you can see, there's no holes drilled here for the mounts. So I'll butt them up together, mark the holes, drill them, and get it back in there. And once it's in there, I'll find out the position I need for the thermostat. Cool, so we're 99% done on the radiator change. Only thing I'm waiting on is a different fitting for the steam port in the top tank of the radiator. This one's 10 mil, whereas this is only 8. So I'll change that fitting over, but I'm not going to have that for a day or two, so I won't bore you guys with that. So I'll just put that on once that's done. But I use the same top hose as what I had before. I had to change the bottom hose, which was good because I got rid of that accordion style hose that I had. So I've actually got a hose off a Land Cruiser. I went down to the parts store and that was pretty much what I needed. Just had to cut it a little bit shorter. So I've bolted me intake to the radiator as well. Fans are wired up, so that's all good. So the only job left to do on this thing, which is super simple, is I'm just going to do an oil and oil filter change. So that's the oil and filter I use in this thing. I'm sure the internet will tell me that I'm using the wrong stuff, but that's what I've used in it since I've had this motor in it with zero problems. So yeah, we'll throw it up and dump the oil and change the oil filter. Yum. Ooh, made a poo-poo sound. Well, that's it guys. She's all back together, all done, parked back in her little hidey hole. Radiator's all done. I sort of gave up on waiting for my fitting to come in. So I've just put a little reducer from 10mm down to 8mm hose. Yeah, look, it's not the best, but it works, it doesn't leak. I've just had the thing running for a while, and far out this radiator makes a huge difference. So before, she would quite often get up to around 210 degrees Fahrenheit. Whereas now, and that's with both the fans going, whereas now I've just had it idling here for about 45 minutes and it didn't go above 180 degrees. The ECU controlled fan kicked on during that time for less than a minute and then turned itself off. Didn't even have to use the second fan. So super happy with that. Something I should have done a very long time ago. But thank you guys for watching. I appreciate all of the support. If you like what you see and want to see more, remember to like and subscribe. And we'll see you in the next video. Take care out there, guys. Catch ya.